I can't help it. I have to talk more about Molten Core. First, just to show a little bit of Brick's BWL. These guys are running 4 BWLs a week in order for them to split gear for more of their raiders. This is an example of a solid split BWL, just highlighting the little bit of kerfuffles though. Unfortunately, didn't have a cloak on and just standing a little bit too far forward here when that breath happens. So, rip to the Bowser. You see how Loves to Spoon has a cloak on, that's why he lived there in comparison. Other than that, pretty clean run, besides this little techie incident here. So I don't think that the Paladin should engage this way. I understand that they were worried about the boss being over here, but run directly in at square rather than coming from the wall like this. Look at how long it takes for those techies in the back to catch up. Clonk was too far forward here, sure. I don't know what he's doing, just watching. Didn't even cast dynamite, just died like a dog. But yeah, I don't think that the setup was correct. I think that's part of the problem. Going directly in and having them all clump in the middle is much better. And ideally, I feel like you could have a rogue be close, not too close, but stealth, and then just throw a dynamite in stealth and get a better opening on the techies. Anyways, besides that, clean run. What was not clean was the splits after. They did a split Molten Core. And these guys, lots of them play on Era with Nax geared tunes that are just higher output. These guys here in this raid are mostly in Molten Core, slight BWL gear. No one has rank 14 yet. They're just not quite at that next power spike while still doing relevant content. So we'll just get into it now. The most bricked Molten Core ever. I'm going to keep it really brief. We're going to just focus on some highlights. Dog pulls. This pull was really scary. This was the first potential wipe. The mages did a good job not going too crazy too early, and everyone correctly killed stuff equally. Even then, though, it was very scary. See them popping love fools, that kind of stuff. Wang Wizard is going to die here. They're just not able to have enough people on all these different hounds. I mean, technically they do have 9 warriors for like 10 mobs. It should be doable, but it's just a lot of AoE and rip to Wang right there. So that was the first indication to me that it's like, oh, okay, 20 people versus 40 people, there's a difference. You can't do the same strategies. Other than that, not much scariness in this first room of bosses. This boss, it was the first time that it kind of felt like, oh, okay, everyone needs to be healed. Judgment of Light starts to get utilized more later, which is great because you just see the amount of damage that the entire raid is taking. This raid doesn't have a Warlock or a Hunter, and in some ways you may not think that that's super impactful, but Warlocks are really, really good in Molten Core, that they can banish, Curse of Wreck, Soulstone, provide an imp for a little bit extra health, just some different stuff. I'm not sure exactly how the groups are set up either. Koopa, I think, has them based on classes. It's a little bit hard to tell. I'm assuming that they had fire and Devo and stuff for tanks, but again, not having that imp buff, you do feel it. Generally, though, the trash was pretty easy. They just kind of plow through, a little bit slower, but stuff dies. Third boss, pretty easy. They have enough decurses. It's not a problem to decurse a tank or two really easily. And yeah, that boss is just stupid easy. But what boss is not easy is Gar. If you've never done unmanned or undermanned Gar before, you are a lucky soul. I myself have done too many binding runs and have seen the struggles with undermanned Gar. Gar isn't the problem, it's all the ads. It's 8 ads that hit surprisingly hard, and they apply a magic debuff on whoever's tanking them that if you get multiple stacks of it, the damage, it really starts adding up. So you would need to constantly be cleansing that tank, as well as healing that tank, as well as healing the main tank. And that level of healing output is just hard for this raid to do. They have 3 priests and 2 paladins. The other bricked split had 3 paladins and 2 priests. And I think that's just better overall for an undermanned Molten Core. The paladin output of being able to spam on the tanks combined with having 3 blessings compared to 2, it's impactful. So, how does their first attempt go? Not well, we'll say that. Tank dies right on the opener. I don't see a pre-shield on the tank. I do think that he applied Stone Shield right before he went in. We could look at the logs, but he just gets absolutely folded and Giga owned in one shot. So rip to the tank there, and when that happens with an underman group, you just wipe. So first wipe here, long run back. They don't have soul stones. They didn't set up a DI. And Molten Core, when you run back, there's mobs. Stuff respawns. So it's not super easy to just have everyone single file and get back to the same old spot. You have to start at the beginning of the instance, wait for everyone to run back, and then go as a unit. So they continue forward, and now here's the second attempt of Gar. Again, trying to just skip forward a bit here. So this time they're going to use a mage and do an ice block strat. So Dilf runs on in. Again, I don't know why they don't have a pre-shield on the person that's ever pulling. That to me is just like basic. But anyways, the pull was not good. This mage pull was bad. When a mage does this, you want them to go in and then like wait 2 seconds for then people to pick stuff off. In this strategy, Dilf went in and then half a second later, everyone's running in and ripping thread off the ads. So this was a very poor execution of the mage block strat. And now all these ads are just going to start hitting healers. It's just chaos. There's like 3 or 4 warriors that are, oh, sorry. So this strategy is now different. We're also killing some of the ads. I think they're like running back and forth. I don't have the comms of this kill. I don't really know exactly what the strategy was because watching it, it doesn't really make sense what these guys are doing. Like some DPS were running back and forth. They do start killing a couple of these ads, I think. You see some mage frostbolts going this way, so it seems like they were trying to kill the ads. I don't know. Very confusing, but they just don't have the mana to sustain for this long of a fight with this many people taking damage. They're trying to split all their healing and they're just not able to keep up. So people start falling over. The boss is still at 85%. They still have like 4 ads left, 5 ads left, and it's a wipe. So this was a much worse attempt, even though it lasted longer than their attempt where they didn't kill the boss at all. Because at least their strategy was viable. This was just a terrible execution. So they did have a DI this time. Maybe I shouldn't be so critical. It's good that they were able to go back faster so they didn't have to run back this time. So this time, again, they have the tank run in, but it's more staggered in terms of how much insta damage the tank was taking there. He didn't get hit by everything right at the exact same time that time. So this time, it's just burn boss. Do as much damage as possible to the boss. You see a couple gamer target dummies going out, love fools, that kind of stuff, to try and mitigate how much damage the person on the ad is taking. So the ad tank just died there. So they're now going to cycle AoE shouts with lips and try and just immune how much melee damage they're taking from those ads as long as possible while they continue to nuke the boss. So once the boss dies, they're just going to go loot the boss, do the douse, and then die again. Koopa makes a Giga gamer play here. He starts casting blessings, and it works. Kind of shocking. In retrospect, he definitely should have been casting. You just want to have a king's spell on your on your bars. I'm not sure if he has King's spec though, so that is one factor. But regardless, you probably want to cast it on. I guess maybe he was casting on a mage because the mage was in range. I don't know. It worked out, right? So Giga gamer play to be able to kite the ads for that extra 10 seconds. That literally was the difference maker between them killing the boss and not. So boss dies, they all have to run back again. So we're now up to wipe 3. And we're about to see wipe number 4. This is the harder part of the instance. These firewalkers, if they're alive for a long period of time, they do a very heavy amount of damage. I'm seeing a lot of people casting like cleave and stuff like that, and you really don't want to be doing that on firewalker packs that you're engaged for a long period of time. You want to be heroic striking and doing as much damage as possible to insta-kill the firewalker. Maybe I'm wrong in that because you can cleave and get more potential flurry procs, yada yada yada. We can start talking about warrior gameplay, but I don't know. It just felt like a lot of times there wasn't really that focus to instantly kill this skull target. Look at how long it takes sometimes these mages to wake up and start hitting things. So it should be casting now. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Okay. So there you see. All right, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, that skull, it's going to kill people a couple times when they're dealing with firewalkers. This time, though, they were just way too far forward and not understanding of how Molten Core works with patrols. This tank is just totally out of range, out of position here. They need to drag this pack much farther back. Again, I'm not sure if they're used to having a hunter do all the pulling for them, but wipe it up. This was an interesting experience here seeing this. The mobs would evade when you would stand far away in the lava like this, but then the boss would rip Koopa back. My question is, if you got out of line of sight or the boss didn't have line of sight on you, I almost think that the boss would have reset as well, because the ads reset here, but then the boss rips him back in a second. So the ads reset, and it seems like a giga play, but now he's just going to get ripped back in. So I just wonder if he went out of line of sight there. That would have been different. I don't think so. Maybe not. Because when you think about it, think about other bosses, how they do that, like Oro. Oro will just rip you to him, even if you're out of line of sight. So, anyways, they're running back in. They do manage to kill Baron Geddon this time. Hooray. It's pretty boring for the next 5 minutes of this. There are some periodic deaths. Again, these firewalkers are just giga owning the raid. I feel like here you just don't want to have these ads all stacked together, taking this amount of cleave and AoE damage as an undermanned raid group. They're just kind of zugging. X cleaves, square does AoE fire damage. They do a good job with their positioning of how they're faced away, but I don't know. It's just a little bit too much cook. So they clear everything out. They do Shaz. Shaz was easy. Run Run did a good job pulling. So while they didn't have a hunter, their Resto Druid generally was pulling with Fairy Fire, which is definitely the play. We're getting ready for another wipe in a minute here. Sulfuron, easy boss. They did a good job of kicking and then doing that fight. So they lost 1 or 2, but oh well. But let's go on now to the next boss. This one was not good. So they correctly set up Golemagg of bringing the Ragers far enough away that they're no longer enraged. It just seems like they're taking so much damage here. Be curious, we'll have to look to see how many stone shields these tanks were casting throughout the raid. I think that's a significant factor if you want to have a clean molten core with less people like this, is just chugging stone shields throughout. So they're just not able to keep up with healing here. Their priests are all completely as well as the paladins. They're just trying to keep the tank alive, but it's going to start falling apart here. So they just get it in time here. Golemagg is at 3% health, and people are just all dying. Tank dies. Koopa starts melee hitting the boss as a paladin. That's when you know it's desperate. So they had like 6 people left on this boss, near death. But they recover and move on. Domo went surprisingly well. It's all about the setup. The mages did a good job with their polymorphs. I don't get it why no one ever stuns on. Okay, there's the Hodge. Gamer play from Bowser. I was just about to say, why the heck is Bowser not Hodge? Then he did that. Gamer. So, clean kill there. It's all about the start. As long as the start of that fight isn't bad, the rest isn't too bad. But now we're setting up for Rag. They don't even try it. They go get world buffs. I don't have the VOD of the other split. Unfortunately, they were too cowardice to save their VOD. I couldn't find anyone. I watched the live stream of it, but there are no records of the embarrassment of the other split, although the other split was much better. In the other group, they wiped to Gar, I think once, and that was like it. They ended up killing Rag after rebuffing. They died with Rag being at like, 10% or something like that. So then they went and rebuffed and came back and killed it. So this split, they didn't even try to kill Rag first. They were like, we're the bad split. We saw what the other guys just did. We're not close to that. We need the buffs. So they go and get world buffs. And let's see how the fight goes. So I'm just going to skip to 50% because it's not really that much before that. The difference between them killing Rag and not came down to a bunch of small factors. You could make it as simple as, well, Kha'Zix dies here in a second. Here comes the Wrath of Rag, and these tanks just don't lap their taunt quick enough. It's hard for me to tell if maybe one taunt resisted and this other person got knocked away. Kha'Zix just needs to chill for a second, and he dies. So missing out on this damage for the rest of the fight was the difference maker. It was weird. It looked like for a second there that Kha'Zix gets potentially almost insta B-res right after. Like Run starts to cast it and then doesn't cast it. I think he was saving it for a tank. But unfortunately, don't need it for a tank. You need it to get that DPS back up. So this is where it gets really crazy. Last little bit of the fight. Koopa's doing a good job of keeping Judgment of Light on the boss for that extra little bit of healing. But the healers are all completely at this point when it comes to the priests. Mages are dying. People are just going to start ticking down here. They just don't have anything left in the tank. And there's this right here was really bad. Run comes in to go and do the B-res and Kha'Zix. And in the process of running over, he knocks a couple people away. And then Koopa is going to knock a couple of people away as well in a second here. I don't think that was the difference maker, but just the amount of chaos that happened in the final 20% of this fight was too much. So people are just all taking down right now. They've got nothing left. This boss lives with 2 to 3% health. I don't think that love pool was the difference between them wiping and not. So rip. They submerge. Boss is at 2%. Sag. Now, what was the difference is the lack of consumes from this raid group. I don't understand going back to town and not getting fire pots. That to me is just hubris. You think you're better than you are because did this raid not see how terrible they were this whole time? I don't understand. Looking at fire pots, right? 4 out of 20 people had a fire pot on. That's so bad. Joey is using rank 1 Fireward, by the way. I hope he knows that there's a better one. These guys didn't get a whole ton out of it, though. I mean, heck, Joey, maybe he was casting the lesser ones so that he had more mana uptime. I don't know, but he did a better job than these other mages when it came to using their Fire Ward to reduce the damage that they took. If the warriors weren't casting Greater Fire, were they casting Mighty? Nope. How about Lips? So there was like 5 out of 9 warriors that used a potion cooldown on this fight. That's embarrassing. As far as other stuff goes, resources is interesting to see the amount of mana regen. So yeah, Run just, he used a mana pot. These guys gotta get Dark Runes. No one's using Dark Runes. One healer used a Dark Rune. Mourner needs to use a mana pot. He needs to get mana pots. I think that's about it to highlight. Just a little disappointed. I know that these guys could do better. Props to them for coming back the next day and killing Rag, but I'm sure this is never going to happen again in the history of Bricked for them to do a split run like this early on. And if you think that you can do better, I wouldn't be surprised. This is an example of a speedrun guild that is not speedrunning and they fall apart when that happens. It takes a little bit more patience to do prog like this, and when you're hitting your head against a wall and you're struggling, some groups will double down and they'll invest and get committed to the kill, and other groups will have this experience. I mean, let's see how many. I mean, did all the warriors even have mongooses? No. People don't even have mongooses for this. Like, that's so bad. Maybe that's the problem with fresh and consumes being expensive. But in general, this rag is a perfect example of when you split and you're doing lower tier content, people will screw you over because they put in low effort. So, anyways, just wanted to talk about it. I found it interesting, and I hope you have a good day. GG's. Oh, one thing, Stone Shield, right? Let's see how many Stone Shields over the course of this raid. How much were they sipping? Okay, so I mean, props to Agni. 9, that's respectable for sure. So one guy's holding it down, but I mean, I can pick apart anyone, right? Why the heck does Agni not have an enchant on his helm? I would have gotten the 9 stamina enchant when I went back to the town if I was him. I'm assuming he got that day of. Yeah, anyways, GG's boys. Till next time.